Welcome to the second video from the series, where I go into new scenographic spaces to experiment with different lighting setups for both photography and video with a commentary. Setups will not use a lot of hardware and are mainly for educational purposes, to show you how different spaces may work with basic lighting gear. Today I went into a vintage saloon with 4 different lamps at my disposal, spanning roughly 30 square meters. This room features a single movable wall with a window cutout and an open front. To kick things off, let's challenge ourselves by attempting to achieve a bright daylight-inspired lighting setup. Bright spaces often result in low contrasts, a flat appearance and lackluster shadow definition. This is why you will rarely encounter very bright rooms with white walls in Hollywood productions. As always, I start by turning off all technical lighting in the studio and covering window blinds. Next, I will set up our strongest light behind the window. I resisted the urge to use a hard spotlight to create a nice sun-like light rendering and decided to put a full diffusion frame in front of a Godox M600D set to its maximum power. A large diffused light source like this works wonders for illuminating human faces and skin, though it can present challenges in maintaining adequate shadow definition within the room. While the light from the window creates a pleasing look, it alone isn't sufficient to fully illuminate the space, which is actually a good thing. It means that we have greater control over spill light. The central area of the scene, particularly around the old TV, remains unnaturally dark for our desired bright day-like setting. To address this, I've positioned a flex LED panel above the corner. While in a real room you might need to hang the light from the ceiling, here I've opted for a larger boom stand. Because we've got a lot of diffused light, I removed the grid from the Falcon Eyes LED panel. Placing the panel just behind the TV allows me to use another light source to illuminate its front. I've also incorporated a small spotlight to create distinctive textures with hard light through the window. In real-world scenarios, the light passing through a window is not just hard or soft, it combines various characteristics. A clear sky is a source of diffused lighting, but a sun is a hard point source. So if you want to create a somewhat believable day-like setup, you can mix many different characteristics of lighting. However, it's crucial to consider framing carefully, as the spotlight creates a cone of harsh light near the window, which could give away the setup if not taken into account, especially when actors are moving around the room. I like to add haze for these lighting setups to enhance the visibility of the light, but take notice that you do not need to use it in bright scenes, and obviously set-ready haze levels are way lower than those shown in this video. In our current setup, all the light sources are placed to the left, resulting in a bit too much contrast in various areas of the scene. To address this, I put Nanlite FS300 to fill in the shadows. Initially, I tested lighting from the direction of the camera with a very low output, but this can often destroy shadow definition, so I quickly changed it to illuminate the ceiling, providing a subtle feel for the shadows in the scene. Also, the haze went down to levels that can be accepted for this space. With these adjustments, we've achieved our first quick setup for this room. It's important to note that the footage shown here is unprocessed raw footage converted to Rec 709. I haven't used any LUTs or even contrast controls, so what you see is essentially the raw look straight from the camera. I use 4 different light sources here, so let's break down each one's contributions. First up, we have an Aperture 60X, which creates well-defined sun-like qualities with plenty of texture and high contrast. As you can see, only this one lamp does a lot, and in many ways we have an interesting moody image right away. Next, we have the Godox M600D, diffused to simulate natural light casting through the window. Its soft, realistic illumination spills nicely throughout the room, enhancing the overall atmosphere. Falcon Eyes bicolor panel from the top is a supplemental light, but on its own it creates an evening look, as if it was a real wall lamp in the corner. Now let's add the remaining lamps. The Nanlite FS300 directed towards the ceiling slightly fills the shadows, then adding the Aperture spotlight changes the evening into the day. Finally, Godox M600D makes the room more realistic by adding natural light bloom. Now let's dive into more stylized looks. I will start by lowering the blinds on the window and removing the diffusion. I turned off the rest of the lamps. With only these two sources of light active, we achieved a compelling image. With these changes, our main light source now creates sharp, distinct shadow lines. To contain the spill light from above, I've added a grid onto the flex panel. In this scene, it would be ideal to use the TV as a light source, but I checked it earlier and this is very old device, without any means of putting their auxiliary image source. The low refresh rate and low light output is also problematic, so I won't try to use it directly. In fact, it is fairly easy to simulate TV working in the room as long as the actual screen is not visible in the frame. Here we obviously can see it fully. There are many ways to simulate a working TV in the frame, but usually it needs good preparation and a lighting plan beforehand. Because of that, I will show you an improvised approach that unfortunately will not work well, but it will be a good showcase of the problems that may arise in such situations. In a moody dark environment, a TV will cast a lot of light, and this lighting must be present in the scene. To simulate a working screen, I have placed a spotlight above the TV, which can be easily masked in post-processing. It will shine onto the central part of the room. You can also try to put a light source onto the TV itself that will be masked after in post-processing. Both solutions could work as long as you do not use haze. Firstly, if you want to do a lot of post-processing or use green screen masking, you want to have a good definition in the shadows around the TV screen. This is problematic because we want to keep high contrasts and a moody look. Additionally, the haze will further destroy these details that we need. Here I added a lot of smoke to show you amplified negative effect of such setup. You will clearly see the spotlight above the TV and the bloom effect around the lamps on the TV screen. These are very hard to correct in post-processing, so as long as you don't want to destroy your image with terrible post-processing, like that, you must plan these shots well. In this setup you could probably salvage a good look without a haze. Alternatively, a well-placed small rectangular flex LED panel covering the TV screen area could provide a more controlled solution. If you don't have such lamps with you, you should take your time to position a few spotlights properly, imitating a light cast from the TV. In these shots I also use an Unlight FS300 working in the background with TV blinking simulation, but in reality, these modes are a problem if you plan to show working screen, because you cannot synchronize light changes to the changes in the content of the video showed in the TV. That's why in reality it is always the best to prepare a TV which can actually show the content. As with many aspects of scene lighting, while post-processing can be helpful, it cannot salvage a botched lighting setup. Now let's transition away from the noir look. I've repositioned the Godox M600D to illuminate the back wall and remove the light sources associated with the working TV. Instead, I've turned on both desk lamps that are visible in the scene. Sun shining through the window does not always go well with nighttime lamps being turned on, but it can mix nicely in dark rooms sometimes. In fact, many of us will turn on the lights in the room during the sunset if it is too dark to read a book. These lamps don't emit much light, so I've added spotlight on the right to supplement them. It also provides a touch of backlight for the center of the scene. This kind of lighting is very stylized and is better suited for photos than for videos in my opinion. In fact, it's mostly a nighttime look, except for the window light, which disrupts the concept. So let's turn it off and see what happens. Suddenly we are left with a captivating scene dominated by the practical lamps and spotlight. To balance the exposure levels, I've switched on the flex panel above. Now this started to come together nicely, even though we use practicals to light the scene, which is usually not the best practice. Practicals should be a justification for other light sources, but sometimes lighting a scene is about making the most of what's available. As you can see, the scene appears too orange due to all the warm light sources. To create better color contrast, I've adjusted the flex light to add a hint of white light in the center of the scene. Finally, I've added a touch of haze to complete the vintage nighttime vibe. I hope these simple lighting setups inspire you and provide new ideas for your own sessions and videos. Let me know in the comments how I could approach this space with a completely different look. Until next time, see you in the next video.